right, well, I am going to kick us off. For those of you joining us in the United States and around the world, it's really a pleasure to be here. I wish I was where Justin is, although I was there very recently, and I can attest personally how beautiful and picturesque what we're seeing right now on the screen does not do it any justice. But the goal here is really to talk about a real project, and Justin McNeal is going to spend some time walking you through that project and share how we got to where we are today. And this is a great idea and a great concept, and it's going to be deployed at scale to show what a real project looks like and how to get there in practice. So, as you know, Jason Dodier, co-founder and chief commercial officer at Grain Ecosystem. I'm proud to be here today, and it's really a pleasure for me to introduce a good friend and our partner, Justin McNeal. Justin's the founder and CEO of Dakota Biochar. And for those of you that don't know, Justin has a really impressive background. He was a U.S. Navy veteran who volunteered to serve just weeks before 9/11, and he spent more than 4 years aboard a nuclear first attack submarine during the global war on terror. He was trained as a nuclear engineer, and his career has been shaped by service, discipline, and an unwavering commitment to integrity. After completing his military service, Justin earned degrees in nuclear engineering, technology, and business, and he's brought that same mission-driven mindset home to South Dakota. And through Dakota Biochar, he's addressing two critical challenges at once: reducing wildfire risk in the Black Hills and restoring agricultural soils across the Dakotas by converting forest and farm residue into high-value carbon-negative biochar and clean energy. And I can tell you it's been an honor every step of the way for Grain Ecosystem to be part of this journey. In addition to leading Dakota Biochar, Justin is also running for the U.S. Senate to bring service-driven leadership, real-world experience, and South Dakota values to Washington. Again, accountability, discipline, and respect for the people and the land is what he represents. And today, Justin is going to be walking all of us through the Dakota Biochar model, the on-the-ground realities of operating a biochar system, and what it takes to build projects that deliver real environmental and economic outcomes. Justin McNeal, my friend, it is a pleasure. Over to you to show us what you are doing over there in the Black Hills.
Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the beautiful Black Hills of South Dakota. So we're actually here up at our site in Rockerville, South Dakota. If you want to pan around, Sam, as you can see, this is just the Black Hills National Forest. So this is a 1.2 million acre kind of island in the prairie, as they say. So we have the Black Hills here, nice national forest, and we have an issue with waste wood here. So there's no marketable value to the waste streams from the logging industry. So the logger will come in and they will take the marketable wood out of the forest. So that's all the trunks of the trees. They'll make the lumber out of that. But the tops of the trees, the needles, the bark, all of that is a waste material that they'll pay the Forest Service a brush disposal fee for. Now the Forest Service would love to sell that, but there's no marketable value to that wood. And the cost of processing that material or grinding it and hauling it somewhere to make it a product, the economics just are not there. So this wood has just been accumulating in the national forest. There's over 500,000 metric tons here in the Black Hills alone. And so we started coming up with this idea of how we can turn that material into a viable product. And so for us, the path that we went down was biochar. How do we take this material that nobody wants? And Sam, if you pan down here, this is our material that comes just straight out of the forest. These sit in big old slash piles. And then we grind it down to this material here, which is just you can see the needles, you can see the bark, you can see all this non-marketable material. that has no value. So the Forest Service will just set these things on fire whenever we have 4 inches of snowfall. Well, we're in the middle of February right now, and if you look around, even though it's cold outside, we don't have any moisture. So it's a huge fire hazard. So we're trying to do something about that. And then yeah, so we are creating biochar to solve the second problem, which you addressed there, Jason, which was, as silly as this sounds, we're trying to heal the earth. In eastern South Dakota, we have 24.2 million acres of farmland. In talking with the USDA, 20% of that acreage is non-farmable due to alkaline dead soils. So we started asking the question, okay, well, why is this soil not producing? Why is this happening? Well, it's because of over fertilization, and fertilizer is just explosives at the end of the day. So they put salt inside the fertilizer to prevent the bag from blowing up in your face whenever you open the bag. So you obviously have to have that salt in there. You don't want people dying from fertilizer explosions. But that slow accumulation of salt over the past 80 years is starting to shot kill the ground. So we are using the biochar to help Mother Earth a little bit. And yeah, so those are the two problems that we're trying to solve that you had said earlier, Jason. I appreciate that. Which is solving the waste wood issue in the forest, preventing wildfires, and then trying to heal the earth through biochar.
And Justin, what's incredible too, to your point, we're seeing it all the way around, even in the pumping of aquifers, more salt, more arson that's coming from the closer you get to the Earth's crust, that salt is dangerous. And it's a real problem, and it doesn't get enough attention. And the work you're doing on the ground there, turning the regional liabilities into multiple assets at once is really critical. And I can attest to it coming with you to see the announcement of your candidacy at Mount Rushmore. On the way driving there, we saw the burning of the ponderosa pine in the Black Hills. I mean, what does that mean to you? What does that mean to residents locally, knowing that you're taking that and getting rid of that? So it's not only are people breathing that in, there's a risk to forest fires, but also just the sheer magnitude of the beauty of it. It's eroding that.
Correct. I mean, we can't take enough. This stuff's coming out of our ears. So, hopefully everybody that's on this call, hopefully this is motivating or inspiring you guys to go out there. The material exists. The need is there. We need a whole lot of people on board across the country, across the world, solving this waste issue. If human beings produce one thing, it's waste. And it's how can we limit our impact of that waste and yeah, make for a better tomorrow.
Well, in order to get to that better tomorrow, the waste has to be processed through something. So you now have identified a reliable waste source that you could probably source in perpetuity, from what my eyes could see when we were doing just a high level tour out in the Black Hills. Why don't you talk about now what happened? So you get that waste, you refine it on site. You're standing near one of those piles now. What does that process look like as you start to think about the next steps of now turning that into a meaningful output?
Sure. So we'll give you guys a look under the kimono, so to speak. So this is our facility here. We are the first company in the world that has done 2 tandem biomass energy technique reactors. So if you can just look at our smokestacks here, we got reactor 1, that's Josie, and reactor 2, that's Winnie. And so we are utilizing these 2 machines to process this material. And what happens is we need to screen out the material to get the fines out. So we have our trommel screen here, and that is getting everything that's less than 1 inch out of the mix. All the stuff that's less than 1 inch easily becomes biochar. But for us, we were having slag issues created in the firebox end. So that's just that'll probably save you somebody a couple $100,000 right there in trying to figure that out. So you're definitely going to need a trommel screen to sift out the finer material. And then we have our 2 feed bins. We have our fuel bin. This bin right here is what goes in to create the heat source of the burning or the fire source that rotates up this drum. And then the opposing side is the feed bin, and then that feed comes down and starts up becoming the biochar, and then everything gets pumped out to the backside, or not pumped out, but augered out to the backside where our discharge bin is. And yeah, so this is our setup. It's the first system that has 2 tandem units in the world. We needed to do that for our second site and our third site. This is really just a market demonstration phase for us, even though this is industrial scale. We're processing over 8,000 tons of material at this site alone. This is just our market demonstration. We are looking to 20x these machines going forward. To really, then we're really attacking those 2 problems that we talked about, which is the waste wood accumulation in the forest, and then the actually healing the earth and getting enough biochar in the ground to make a difference.
Justin, leadership obviously is the capacity to translate vision into reality. I remember, and it was not that long ago, we were sitting down having a discussion about this. And now in a very short period of time, you are executing. It's no surprise because that's the core of who you are and what you do is execute at a high level. Where do you see by the end of 2026, what does realistic success look like in this community coming out of what you've built here now? Can you give the folks on the line a little bit of a comprehension of what's going to be happening between now and the end of this year from those machines based on current and envisioned throughputs?
Sure. So for success for us, and again, I'll tell some secrets outside of school. You're going to need the 3 streams of revenue to make this pencil, in my opinion. So you're going to need the sale of the biochar. You're going to need the carbon credit revenue, which Grain has been great on handling all of that for us. So you're going to need a partner in that carbon credit revenue. And then third is the power generation technology. These things are producing a massive amount of heat. From my time as a nuclear engineer on a submarine, I just hate seeing all that heat being dissipated into the atmosphere, into the atmosphere. We can harness that heat, make steam, turn a turbine turns a shaft turns a generator generate electricity. So for success for any enterprise, I feel like you're really going to need to figure out those 3. So you got to build the market for the biochar. You got to have the carbon credit revenue, and then you're going to need to produce some energy based on that heat. So I think that's what you're going to have to be successful in this business. As far as us, by the end of 2026, we'll be at full 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, sustained operation here at this site. But by the end of this year, we will have another 20,000 ton capacity doing landfill diversion with the city of Rapid City. So we will be taking all of their green waste, yard waste, everything that's coming around from the city, and preventing that stuff from going in the landfill. We are going to be creating the power to generate that site from that waste. We're looking at doing a water treatment plant with the city, powering that, and then also giving them the carbon for the water filtration. So instead of our water being treated with chlorine and a bunch of chemicals, it's just activated carbon biochar that we're pelletizing and filtering the water with. Seems a whole lot cleaner to me. And then obviously by the end of 2026 for us is having broken ground on our big facility, which is going to be processing 100,000 tons of waste wood out of the Black Hills National Forest. So developing those partnerships, we've been working with the U.S. Forest Service on that, and that's a big tackle or a big problem to tackle. But you just got to get started, everybody, and start working the problems. So whatever comes up, you just have persistence beats resistance 100% of the time. I've been very fortunate to have a great team that surrounds us, and that's replicable for anybody else that's looking to do this. Just surround yourself with good people that believe in what it is you're trying to accomplish, and I'm always here to help. So send me smoke signals, call me, send me an email. Happy to help.
Yeah, Justin, in a minute, I'm going to bring a few questions from the audience because we have crazy level of engagement, no surprise. But I do want to flag one thing. You know, a mentor of mine once said, cities are the laboratories of democracy. Cities, states, municipalities. I believe that wholeheartedly. You know, for me, municipal pilots are critical to de-risk biochar and ways to solve local problems. You've highlighted some: waste, fire, fire risk, soils, jobs, all that really important stuff. And I believe that local governments will continue to be the front lines of climate impact and climate solutions. Certainly, one of the reasons I think you threw your hat in the ring to run for the Senate position for South Dakota. Can you share a little bit about how you approached engaging the local municipality with this project? Because I do believe wholeheartedly that one of the ways we're going to move really fast here across the country is through that exact procedure. So how do individuals on the phone that live all over this great country go at it the same way you did to get the attention of the right people to be able to open this kind of a door to do a project such as yours?
So you really got to define your why. Why are you doing this? Develop that story, and it's this story that people can buy into or understand or want to get behind. So with the city municipality, the story that was presented to them was, all right, you guys have 20,000 tons of material that is just going to waste, going into landfill. You don't have a market for it, so we can help with that problem. You guys are looking at doing this water filtration plant. That's good. Well, we have a product that we can use that will prevent the use of so many chemicals. We can power that facility with the heat that's coming from this waste stream. So just being able to tell that story. I mean, politicians always love a story that they can get behind. So yeah, I mean, that's what prompted, I guess, the city wanting to talk to us, about what it is we were doing. But they also need to know that you're real. So for us, having this first site up and running, believe it or not, this was just an idea in all of our heads last July. And we were actually operational in December. So we went from completely stick man to 2 operating units by December. So you just got to get started. You just got to get going. Jump off cliffs, build wings on the way down. And then define your why. Your why is what's powerful. Your why is what's going to keep you going through the hard times. And people will either get on board because they see it and they understand it, or people aren't going to get on board. Focus on the people that want to get on board.
Well said. And Justin, you're gonna chuckle at this. I've got a few people in the chat that said, "How do we vote for Justin? We don't live in South Dakota. How do we vote for it?" But in so that's a nod, obviously, to, I think, regardless of where people sit, this is something that is completely bipartisan. It's what I say when I give a lot of interviews, and folks ask about carbon removal and climate change, etc. I'll make a point for the group here. We are in an environment right now where, as we scale, you're probably seeing this. Certainly, we saw it in North Dakota with data centers getting stood up. These big hyperscalers are more carbon constrained than they've ever been. They're deploying reciprocating engines and turbines. They need carbon removal solutions to offset those emissions to hit their net zero goals. And projects like yours, Justin, hence on the carbon side, is where they get really successful. Now, a couple of questions. So going back to one of the core elements, and this is something that's huge for us at Grain too. It's the people, like you said, Justin. I mean, we can build all the technology and software in the world, but having the best people around you to execute and deliver is mission critical. One of the questions, Justin, is how many workers roughly are needed to process into biochar at your current facility size? Can you talk a little bit about the operations and the day-to-day and what you need to have to deliver against your plan?
Okay, yeah. So we can just kind of work backwards on that. So for our facility, we are processing roughly a semi-trailer of feedstock a day. Now, so to get that material for us, either from the Forest Service, From the Forest Service, you're going to need a log loader up in the forest to take the pile. That takes a person. You're going to need a grinder. We use a horizontal tracked grinder. You're going to need one person to operate that, and then you're going to need roughly 3 to 4 semi trucks with trailers on them. So that's another 3 to 4 people. We can attack a pile in about, over the course of a week. We can generate enough material to last us about 3 weeks. You don't want to just have equipment sitting up in the forest. So you're going to want to collect a bunch of stuff, process a bunch of stuff, and then have a staging area for your material to basically keep you running for the next couple of weeks. And then on site, we have a three, we just have rotation, basically a fire watch that's here. But our BET units that are made in America here, the control system that's on them allows this for a single man operation. The biggest issue that we were running into was our conveying system. Moving solids is more difficult than you think. So really have that figured out whenever you get to this point, is how you're going to efficiently and effectively move those solids. Sam, you can pan down here, but I mean, this is our fuel bin here, and just this one conveyor alone gave us some heartache. We had to spend about 3 or 4 extra days on that, just getting it fine-tuned from the conveyor that we had built. So to answer your question, the processing of the material, that's about that's going to be roughly about a 5-man crew. You're going to need people full-time to work shift, in my opinion, shift work, one person every 8 hours. So 3 people, it's roughly about 5 to 6 people a week, on staff, to run the operation. And then you're going to need all your back office support. So, we were able to sub out a lot of our work, as far as the carbon credits. I'll give you guys a shout out and a shameless promotion there. We chose to go with grain because we thought they were the best in the industry, and they've been proving that. That's one less thing on my plate that I ever have to worry about or think about, is the carbon credit certification and verification. Grain handles all of that for us. You're going to need to find a partner in that. So choose wisely on that. I'm obviously biased on who I would pick. And then, we have a sales team that's going out there and developing the market for this biochar. We're not a small producer at the end of the day, with our 2 units, but this is only going to generate enough material. Like if everything went to the soil remediation, one farmer with a 3,000 acre farm takes our production for the entire year. So the market is there to completely take all of your biochar in the first year. So build out that back end. Obviously you're probably going to want to have it sold before you spend millions of dollars on equipment and machines. But the market is there. The NRCS program, the USDA just dumped another 800 million into regenerative farming. For the farmer to get those credits, they have to have solutions like biochar to be able to get that money. And so, the farmer will need to go through the NRCS EQIP or the USDA EQIP program. If they're signed up for that, then they're going to get reimbursed for that biochar. Get working with an agronomist that you can trust. We have academic partnerships with the South Dakota State University and the South Dakota School of Mines and Technology out here. Find that academic that'll do your testing, that'll do a lot of the research for you, that's proving, what it is you're doing, how the biochar is working in the ground, or whatever the application is that you're going to use it for. That's important. You just got to tie it all together. My job at the end of the day is just a lowly CEO. I call it the ringmaster of the circus. But we have a great team that's around us, and people just execute and do their job. And if people aren't doing their job, then you find the person that is. We've been fortunate to have the former.
Yeah, and Justin, I think a lot of folks forget, universities exist to serve communities. That is at the core. And my experience has been, and I've given this advice a lot of times, if you're in a community that has a heavy ag focus as well, you should be trying to double down with those universities and working with them. They are so helpful. And I've been blown away by the South Dakota School of Mines, their expertise, their willingness to work and collaborate on this. So I think that's great guidance and great advice. And a lot of times, too, they do have the ability to do lab testing and provide those inputs and those data sets as well. So I think that's something that we miss a lot in the fold. And sometimes they even have funding. You never know. But there's ways to test and to go faster. Because at the end of the day, you're right. It is kind of like a three-ring circus. You know, one day you're plumbing. The next day you're on network television, right? I mean, it's what you're called on to do for a greater good, to execute and scale. And everybody that's on this webinar today believes inherently in one way or another in the work that's being done here, and is trying to figure out what role they play in the ecosystem. We have people on the webinar today that are investors. We have people that are equipment manufacturers, EPCs, etc. It's an ecosystem for a reason, and you're showing how it all comes together in the right way. Now, part of that ecosystem is figuring out the end use. So something we've been working on a lot at Grain is trying to figure out what are the right recipes. If you've got a certain feedstock type, what is, and you have a certain unit and a location and a throughput, et cetera, what are the right end use applications? What are the eligibilities? What are the repercussions? What are the price points? Because you talked a lot about economics. You hit on one that I think is really critical for a lot of people here, which is water filtration. I mean, in my past life, I was doing a lot of private equity work, looking at water infrastructure deals, looking at energy as a service. I'm fascinated by the role of water filtration, PFAS remediation. Can you talk to the group a little bit about your learnings around the water filtration angle, what it takes to know the biochar is potentially stored permanently, and ultimately what happens to some of the elements of the activated carbon and the use cases after? Like, as you've gone through that process, I guess, what have you learned, and what confidence interval does it give you for this particular offtake type or use case as it would be?
You know, you're starting to get a little out of my realm. I'm not afraid to limit my my understanding of it all, but you know, my second grade understanding of it is, you know, when you make the biochar, you are burning out all of everything else out of it down to 92% of just the carbon. So this stuff looks like a honeycomb under an electron microscope. So it's just naturally going to act like a filter or just like the filter. I wish I could have some of those so the electron microscope stuff for you so you could see that. But yeah, it's no different than do you guys remember Brita water filters? So that's just activated carbon that is inside that filter, and yeah, it's filtering it out because it's all of that porous material that the biochar is, that acts like that sponge, and that's just filtering out the stuff that you don't want to have in there. So the heavy metals, the I don't know how the PFAS works, but those are those 16-chain carbons that never want to seem to go away.
Yeah. Well, we did it, Justin. For example, there was a pilot in my home state of Rhode Island. We used biochar to filter water in a pond, and essentially, really simply, the whole thematic of it is to deal with local issues around nutrient runoff, algae blooms, which is a huge topic. There's folks on this call that have deep expertise in trying to leverage biochar as a way to build resilience into algae blooms, stormwater pulses, legacy contaminants. But the goal was nutrient capture, nitrogen and phosphorus, because of that high surface area. And as you rightly pointed out, the charged pore structure, you can absorb, bind, and reduce. And that helps with the septic seepage and other elements that is so important. And it ultimately will starve algae by removing that excess nutrient. So exactly right. And I think that, again, your project is going to highlight a lot of these things, coming forward. I would also add one point that the NRCS programs can often be layered or combined when they address different conservation objectives. I had a few people in the chat highlight this, and they're absolutely right. So if you've got regions like the Gulf Coast, in the Southeast, this approach can be a key driver for successful approvals. So while you can't, in many cases, double dip, you could build a system. And NRCS is designed to work together when done right. And that's why we're seeing really good results coming out of that program, which is fantastic. So I
Correct.
think that's
Yeah.
that's
So,
a good thing.
yes, the NRCS here in South Dakota, obviously, we're the fifth largest ag producing state in the country. So a majority of our stuff is all agricultural related. But, there's 4 different NRCS codes or programs that biochar falls under. So obviously everybody knows about 336, which is the soil amendment for biochar. But there's 3 other ones I can't remember off the top of my head. But yes, there's multiple applications within the NRCS, that the federal government is helping producers, farmers, ranchers with remediating their land or conserving their land through the use of biochar.
Yeah. Yeah, and Justin, you're one of the ones you're referring to is a lot of this stuff sits within EQIP, the Environmental Quality Incentives Program. Again, there's a few folks on this call that are absolute experts and they live for this. But basically, dealing with common soil health practices like cover cropping, mulching, nutrient management, no-till. What's important is it's the entry point for soil health and usually the easiest place to fund first deployment. And then you start getting into conservation stewardship and obviously something I'm very passionate about and you are, which is the Fix Our Forest Act, which is a key one. And we'll circulate when we send the recording to everybody and more answers to all the questions we don't get to today. We will put a list with all the things that Justin referenced. So you have that in there at a high level. But Justin, coming back to your project, there's a common theme in the chat, and I have a take on this, but it's really important to get your take. Of all of this stuff, I think I have a feeling I know what you're going to say here, but I want to give you the floor. What is the most important first step in your view to get a project like this off the ground? There's the customers, there's the sources, there's the site. Talk us through what is like the famous book, The One Thing, like our friend Riley, who's an avid reader and loves books. And I'm an avid reader and love books. That's one of my favorite books. But what is that one thing that you would call out that's like that was the core anchor to get this going from the get-go?
Figure out your why. Why are you doing this? From an economical standpoint, you got to figure out the feedstock. Everybody's going to get limited on the feedstock. I think the markets are there for the finished product and the marketable product. But it's going to come down to what is your feedstock and do you have enough of it to produce this stuff at scale? So from the economic standpoint, figure out how you're going to tie up or lock up your feedstock. But yeah, to answer your question, the first thing that you're going to need to do is figure out your why. Why are you doing this? What is your problem? What is anytime I ever invested in anything or I listened to stuff, I always thought in my mind, what is the problem? What is this guy saying the problem is? What is their proposed solution? And then do I agree that is a problem? And do I agree with their proposed solution? So really spend time to figure out and address what the problem is that you're addressing. And then what is your solution?
Yeah. I think that's very, very well said. Efforts and courage and all these things are nothing without purpose and direction. I will say that one of the reasons we launched our free jobs to be done tool was we wanted to root some of this stuff in reality. We wanted to make sure people really had the passion that you have to want to do these projects, because starting any business is not an easy lift. You have to be passionate and fanatical about what you're doing. No question about that. Obviously, that's, and focus, right? Avoid scope creep at all costs. It's so easy in the world we live in today to look at the shiny object and jump to that shiny object. It's hard to stay laser focused and execute on a vertical. In this case, biochar and vertically integrating around that. And it's proven that is the that is the thing from an economics perspective that can generate a fantastic return both for the environment and economically, right? And I think that's really important. That's been a message that we've been trying to deliver to equity and debt and structured credit, all the capital players, family offices, philanthropies, all that good stuff. But I think that's a key element in this, Justin, is you have to be bought in on it, and then you have to, from my perspective, you need to have access to the waste, to the feedstock. I cannot tell you. I mean, I've had probably over 1,000 discussions in the almost 5 years since we've been, working on grain with folks that want to do biochar. And the one driver for me that always breaks it down is when you don't have a locked-in feedstock. I just can't emphasize that enough. If you do not have access to that feedstock in a locked-in capacity, it is not going to work, because that is your currency. That is your currency. Just like we say, people will say stable coins are the HTTPS for the blockchain and, that community. Whatever you want to frame it as, this is your HTTPS for doing a biochar project, because without what you just showed, you cannot get that machine processing and create the outputs that are going to drive revenues that are going to keep the project ticking and then generate a return for your stakeholders.
And that's the other thing on the feedstock, is to where you could either get it for free or get paid to take it. Because moving.
Yes. Another question I was going to ask you.
Well, I want to interrupt you real quick. Do you guys want? We were going to fire up reactor 2 for you, Winnie. Did you guys want to see that?
I think everybody wants to see that,
All
Justin.
right.
Let's do it. Walk us through that. Wow, and kudos to BET. I mean, this is really a work of art. Fantastic job. I know the BET team is on the call right now. It's been a privilege for us to work with them in continued capacity. This looks beautiful. Go ahead, Justin. Show us.
All right. So this is
the...
John. He's the site manager here at Rockerville. John, you want to give him a play-by-play of what you're doing?
Yeah. So we started by filling the furnace here with all of our fuel material. Each time we start in the morning, we got to light her off. So we're going to fire it up right here. All this material is sitting on top of these grates in here. This is how you want to get it started. Once we get this lit, we'll be able to close this door, and on our controls, we can set the temperature to whatever we want it. And there's a damper here that will provide oxygen as needed. So we can control the temperature here, which then in turn allows us to control the temperature going down the drums. The long cylinders here, there's 4 of them. And make sure that our temp is set right so that we're producing the char that is requested.
Yeah, good deal. So if you've never seen a reactor get fired up, that's the process. So we can kind of take you inside the belly of the beast here a little bit. So we are sitting in between our 2 different reactors, Josephine on my left, Winnie on the right. They're identical machines. Winnie just sits inside of a container. We can kind of show you a little bit of how it works, because Josephine's not inside of a container. But so our fuel source or our feedstock will come in. It comes into the firebox end. So this is just a big furnace. That's what you saw John lighting up over here. And then that flame, that fire, heats up this drum. The best way that this got explained to me was that this is just a big hot frying pan. So this is a 3-foot diameter cement refractory. So the cement refractory gets nice and hot from the flame that's in here, and that just heats it up. It gets actually nice and pink hot inside, and then this just rotates. So, and then our feed source, which is the same material, will travel and tumble down this drum, and then come out and it gets discharged into our discharge conveyor. And let's walk and show you guys the finished product. So, and for us, we're co-located with an active sawmill, Baker Timber Product, up here in Rockerville, South Dakota. This is their post and pole plant. So if you ever see the old fences that are made with wood, these are the posts that go into the ground, and then the poles that go in between them. So we got a bunch of wood just laying around here. This is all the marketable wood. And then we will walk you over to our 53-foot walking floor trailer that conveys all of our finished biochar. This is our
And Justin, those old post mills, those were used in like early windmills and stuff like that, which is cool. Like the history of all this is fascinating.
Yeah. We just emptied this out, but we will fill up this trailer about in less than a week. So this is our nice Dakota Biochar Black Gold.
Oh man, in the Black Hills.
In the Black Hills of South Dakota. And yeah, that would be my biggest thing. There's going to be problems. Just keep working them out. Keep focused. Keep charging. There is a network of people that are trying to get this industry off the ground. I am here to help. Everybody on my team here is here to help. We're not going to accomplish the two problems. We're not going to solve the two problems that I discussed without a bunch of people working on the problem. So we got to start addressing the waste issue. We got to we got to help Mother Earth out. We're poisoning the soil. We're poisoning the water. We're poisoning the air. We can do better. We can be better. And let's just get like-minded individuals that agree with that problem, and let's start coming up with the solutions. We can collectively work together. I'm here to help.
Yeah, and Justin, a few last things here, and then we'll go to a couple more Q&As before we wrap. But I mean, it is the element of the team, right? So we talked about Dakota, BET, Grain, and a handful of others coming together. I mean, there's a lot of parts and pieces that go into this. So everything from project design and readiness, which you talked about, the elements around the feedstock, the sizing, the siting, operating assumptions. Then the carbon and the data infrastructure, the market alignment, so the work to coordinate the offtake and the energy values. And then, of course, over the top of it all is the finance and the risk reduction as you continue to build and scale. And there's the OpEx element of these things. I mean, a lot of these sites, that might be a helpful element too. There's a few questions on the electricity piece in terms of, generating on site, how what is your longer term play with the electricity? Maybe talk a bit more to that, because I think my background coming from working on a lot of power purchase agreements and RECs and energy projects in general, that is a key element. Certainly microgrids, being able to have that resilience on site, driving down your costs. And one of the main reasons for microgrids in this country was to stabilize the levelized cost of energy for projects because of the inconsistencies. Can you talk a little bit more for the group around that vision, around the energy and the electricity and the heat as you see it going forward the next few years, and also what you think it might mean for the industry as a whole?
Yeah, so we are taking care. So the power that we're generating on site covers our parasitic load from all of our feed conveying system. Now we have a Bitcoin miner that is going to be taking our power. So we have the power coming off the heat from the stacks. We have shore power that's coming from the utility. And then we have our backup 200 kilowatt generator here. She looks a little ugly, but she was in Iraq for probably 10 years. So, so yes, we have a triple redundant electrical generation system that's powering, not only our need, we're supplementing power to the sawmill that's here, and then we're giving the excess power to a Bitcoin miner data center that needs that power. When we go later down the road, we're kind of limited on space here at this site, but we're looking into people that even need the further waste heat after we're done with the power generation side. So there's distillers that are looking at it. asphalt manufacturers that just need that extra additional heat that we can provide them. We want to make this thing as efficient as possible. So just start having those conversations. Those are just some things that came across our desk on what we could potentially do. I'd be happy to turn the camera over to our chief technology officer who's holding it right now, and he could probably talk a lot more educated than I can on some of those additional streams. Sam, would you like to say anything on that?
No, I could go on forever on that.
Dr. Sam Papendick, who's holding the camera, he really understands a whole lot more of the potential needs or what we could be using that stuff for, and I'm blessed to have him on the team, and I just kind of let him run loose and say, all right, well, let's ferret out whatever you think we might be able to use stuff for. Don't leave any stone unturned. There's a market for everything it is that we're doing here, and we want to be as efficient as possible with it. We don't want to be wasting anything.
And Justin, I think that's the key, right? I mean, even the goal, I know there's a lot of data center fans and folks that have worked in the data center space on this call. And there's a term called power usage effectiveness, which is about improving the efficiency. So it's ensuring the power you have coming in is right sized for the load you're supporting. And I think as we look towards utility load growth expectations, which in my opinion have reset materially to be, maybe closer to 8% over the coming years versus the historical 3 to 5%, we are in an environment that's going to be more rate sensitive. And you're going to be looking at businesses. Businesses are going to try to figure out how they get their own power usage effectiveness, parasitic loads, parametric estimates down to an area that's hyper efficient. But U.S. utilities, I mean, wrapping my head around this is hard to do, but we're on track. By 2030, 130 gigawatts of firm committed generation capacity in places like the Dakotas, which we talked about when I was in South Dakota, are places that, because they're very business friendly, are going to be housing some of these facilities, and they're going to be looking for partnerships and collaborations. And I think that's really important as you look at peak demand versus total install capacity, and then what the annual additions look like per annum. So I think the fact that you were able to move so fast and create this gold standard, I think is a really good sign. And I would imagine, the leadership at that state level is going to be pulling you into more of these things in the state and at the broader community. From my perspective, the real system risk isn't power scarcity per se. It comes down to capital misallocation driven by, cost discipline issues and not estimating things correctly. And it goes back to what you said, Justin, why you have to have a core belief system. You have to have an executing plan. And I've seen your kind of operating plan, and that's what I think needs to be done. That's a best in class. That's why I wanted to have this session, because for all the developers on the call that want to do projects, that's what you're going to need to have to go to the next level and do this. And I guess my kind of last question to round out would be coming full circle to think about cost and what it takes to get one of these off the ground. Obviously, we all know it's hard to get the first project done. Once you get that done, everybody wants to come in, right? I mean, it's the age-old adage. We went through it as a startup, right? Once you start having success, then all the investors want to come in. But at the beginning, you feel like you're out there on an island. I certainly felt like that 4 or 5 years ago talking about biochar. Now I get the privilege of being at the stock exchange and the NASDAQ and Bloomberg talking about biochar, which is it's a privilege. Same for you. You're getting press at a national level to talk about something you're passionate about. 4 or 5 years ago, though, that wasn't easy. Can you share, maybe to round out with the group, what that journey was to drive capital? Obviously, we can talk about the carbon part of the story, and that's what Grain's here to do. But for the debt and equity part, to get this project going, and you put a lot of sweat equity in this thing. Talk about that a little bit for the folks that are trying to do something similar in their communities to raise capital.
So for raising it, it's a little bit different when you have the cash to just make it happen. But I mean, we were no different. So the cash that we had available was not what wasn't enough to get this thing off the ground with everybody else doing it for us. So the money that we had available, we had to make that work. So, we didn't buy brand new machines. We found a machine that the city of Lincoln never turned on, and we got that for a killer deal. We've had to just get things done on our own because we didn't have all of the cash that we needed to make this a $12 million build out. So yeah, just figure out what you have and then start making it work with what, excuse me, I can't talk today, with what you have. And then, what I always said is if you can't get funding for something, you just have a bad idea. And, for us, building the team that we built, being able to address any questions that people might have had, it answered a lot of the no's. For me, anytime I ever invested in anything or I ever tried to build something, I always said, well, let's just try to figure out 90% of the no's, and then we can execute at that point because we can figure out the other 10% on the fly. So, yeah, it's figure out a ballpark of where you need to be, and then just start pounding the pavement. I know, Jason, you guys have funding options or capital, help that's out there. Really define, that wasn't our case. We didn't need that, but the resources and the opportunity is out there. Define your problem, really execute on and then define your problem, come up with your solution, and then present that. Tell your story, and it's going to help you whenever it is time for you to go start asking for money, if that's what you need to do. Have 90% of those no's figured out before you ever ask for money. And it should hopefully go a little bit easier for you.
Yeah, and certainly once you can show cash in the ground, that enables and unlocks some of the infrastructure investors, because then you have a scale potential in a portfolio that aligns with the cash profiles, the investment profiles that they're looking to deploy. And I would just urge the audience, when you think about it, as part of what we try to do at Grain, look at how much capital you're going to need. Think about the ideal capital stack. Remember that, this is your business, and you want to be very prudent about how much of it you give away early on. That's a key part of it when you think about equity and debt. A lot of these projects can be funded with non-dilutive capital, with carbon markets, with debt and USDA loans and other elements. So it's important to consider those different things, look at it early and often, and then constantly reevaluate those options as you continue to go and scale. And there's options always to restructure, look at different things. But I think, going back to your point, Justin, nothing is more important than that team you pick at the beginning, the shareholders you have, the board that you've got, the people that are guiding you, the mentors you bring in on the project, and then certainly, and Justin can speak to this better probably than anybody in the biochar space is doing projects, the federal and state element. Understanding the levers you can pull there is so critical, because there is a lot of opportunity. Just so happens also the great state of South Dakota happens to have the Senate majority leader as well, which is always interesting. So a small but mighty, mighty state, as I learned in my time on my ground there, and it's the state of the presidents as well. So for those of you, I'm sure, that want to visit, I'm sure Justin will roll out the red carpet and welcome you to Rapid City. I would highly, highly recommend it. I guess, Justin, we're about at time, and I know you've got a very busy day. Any closing comments or thoughts for the group? How can people find you and support and highlight? I guess, what would you want to close out on for the audience?
So I'll leave with two quotes. First is Gandhi: "Be the change you wish to see in the world." Second is Leonardo da Vinci, who said, "We know more about the celestial bodies above than the soil underneath our feet." So I'll leave you with those two. Our company website is www.dakota-biochar.com. And the Senate campaign is justinmcneal.com. Feel free to reach out to me. Shoot me a text, email, call me, send me smoke signals. We'll get somebody to answer your questions and get back to you. But yeah, go forward. Don't stop charging. Be serious and be methodical about what it is you're doing, and people will get behind that.
Yeah, I think we've built this industry has built a community. It is a strong community. Obviously, we are really proud that this is a project being done here in the United States, manufactured here in the United States, executed in the U.S. I mean, one definite priority is ensuring in a lot of the big conferences coming up that we have more representation from U.S. developers. I think that will also help get international manufacturers to want to come and engage more in the U.S., more higher confidence intervals. So that's a great thing. But yeah, it's been an honor to work with you all and continue to work with you all. It's just the beginning. We've got a long way to go. But the thematic here is this isn't about theory. It's about doing the work, leaving the land better than we found it. Again, grainecosystem.com. If you want to start to build the brass tacks and think about how to do this, please, I urge you, it takes a minute. Go create a jobs to be done free account and put in some of the work to see what you've got, what you need. And certainly we will be sending this recording around for all of you, and all of the questions we did not get to, there are a few, we will make sure those get answered either in that email or in our Knowledge Hub articles, and you will have that at your disposal. And this webinar, like I said, will be going live very, very soon. Thank you for your time and attention. Justin, best of luck in your continued endeavors. We're rooting for you. We're watching you. And I will see you in South Dakota in a couple weeks.
Take care.
Take care, everybody. Thank you, Sam, by the way. Kudos to Sam for making this possible.
His arm was definitely hurt.
He's been I would have been shaking like session. This, Sam.
I'll do the next session and it'll be all technical.
Yeah, all technical.
Yeah, and then round 2 will be a technical session with Sam.
And then March 6th, next Friday we're doing the big launch grand opening. So
amazing. Those big scissors will be ready.
That's right. That's right. Hey, you have a great day, Jason, and thanks for the opportunity. Thanks for the access.
You too. Enjoy that beautiful weather. Take care, everybody.
Take care.